ISO 27001 Clause 5, leadership. So ISO 27001 is a top-down leadership-based standard. We have to be demonstrating that we have leadership commitment, leadership buy-in, and leadership is driving this. So ISO 27001 Clause 5 is all around that leadership and how we can implement and support our leadership to demonstrate that we are driving from the top. Below are links to the individual chapters within this video. We're going to take each of the subclauses and I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to show you how to implement it simply, easily, efficiently for maximum success when it comes to your ISO 27001 certification. So if you want to fast forward, be sure to jump through that. What are those individual clauses, Stuart, I hear you ask? Well, we have ISO 27001 Clause 5.1, leadership and commitment. We have ISO 27001 Clause 5.2, policies, and we have ISO 27001 Clause 5.3, organizations, roles, responsibilities, and authorities. So we're going to go through each of those as we go for maximum success at our certification, or fast track to the chapters below as we continue our journey with ISO 27001 Clause 5 leadership. Hi, I'm the ISO 27001 Ninja, and this is going to be ISO 27001 Clause 5.1, leadership and commitment. This is going to be your ultimate guide. What is it? What do you need to do to satisfy it? What are the common mistakes that you make? What is an auditor going to look for? How do you pass, right? Part of our series in making you successful with your 27001 certification, taking a deep dive into each of the clauses. As with everything that you see, all of the information that we provide is for free. It's all located on the hightable.io website. hightable.io. Go along, look at the menu item, look at learn, click learn, drop down, and there you're going to see the ISO 27001 reference guide, clause by clause for every clause, Annex A reference guide, every Annex A in more detail, including this particular blog that we're going to go through today. So all of the details that you need are located in this blog, and we're going to go through it and give you a high level on here. So if you need to come back to that, dig into the detail, then be sure to check out that blog. We're going to start with the definition, right? As with always, I have to read these things because I haven't got them committed to memory. I am the ninja, but I'm not an absolute goddamn boffin, right? So I'm going to read it out to you, and then we're going to work from there in terms of showing you how you can then satisfy that. So ISO 27001 Clause 5.1, the definition is top management shall demonstrate leadership and commitment with respect to the information security management system by. Now there are 8 points here, right? 8 points where leadership is going to demonstrate its level of commitment. You think it'd be easy, right? Oh yeah, we just satisfy it, right? Yeah, but there's at least 8 things that they're looking for to see that you've done. Let's go through them. Number 1, ensuring the information security policy and the information security objectives are established and are compatible with the strategic direction of the organization. Easy for you to say. Number 2, ensuring the integration of the information security management system requirements into the organizational processes. Number 3, ensuring that the resources needed for the information security management system are available. Number 4, communicating the importance of effective information security management and of conforming to the information security management system requirements. Number 5, ensuring that the information security management system achieves its intended outcomes. Number 6, directing and supporting persons to contribute to the effectiveness of the information security management system. Number 7, promoting continual improvement. And number 8, supporting other relevant management roles to demonstrate their leadership as it applies to their role and information security. That is ISO 27001 Clause 5.1. It's the 2022 definition of the standard, right? So the 2022 definition of the standard, there's a lot to go at. 27001 is a top-down leadership standard, right? It's actually aligned with the majority of the ISO standards now. They all follow a very similar format, and actually if you've implemented things like 9001 or other ISO standards, a lot of what you see here is going to be familiar to you, and potentially you're going to reuse it or just do a slight tweak, right? So you might have some benefits if you've already got that. As a leadership system, we have to show and we have to lead from the top. This isn't driven by some guy or lady in IT. This isn't driven by some information security person like me with their police hat on or their parent hat on telling you what it is that you need to do. This has to be driven from leadership. It has to be driven from the top, right? You have to want it, you have to drive it, you have to show that you're committed to it, right? This is the only way that we're going to get effective information security. Let's have a little look then, and let's go through the 8 points in a little bit more detail. Hopefully you'll stay with me, because there's going to be some golden nuggets in here for you, right? So let's look at ensuring the information security policy and the objectives are established and are compatible with the direction of the organization, right? So when it comes to the implementation of 27001, you've watched my videos many times. Many of you have already purchased the ISO 27001 toolkit, right? And that's the reason that you're here. But if you haven't, you want the ISO 27001 toolkit, the ultimate toolkit for information security in ISO 27001, the most ruthlessly effective system that you're going to come across, the most aggressively priced, cheapest ISO 27001 toolkit commercially available on the market right now. This toolkit has helped thousands and thousands of people to successfully get themselves certified. Everything that you need for the management system, including this is in there. Right? Now, if you don't buy it, the things that I'm going to mention, the trigger words, the keywords, the artifacts that I'm going to talk about, I actually have blogs on, and I have videos on my YouTube about how you can manually create them yourselves. So I'm not even going to leave you high and dry. I'm not just selling at you, right? But when we're looking at our information security policy, we need a policy, right? And we need a set of policies. The policies are going to be statements of what we do, and we use our policies to communicate to staff, employees, people within our organization, what it is that we do when it comes to information security. We also use our policies externally. Externally, we use our policies to communicate to potential customers and existing customers what it is that we do for information security. We separate out from that the processes. The processes are statements of how. And we separate those out because we don't want to include confidential information and process steps within documents that are potentially going to be publicly or semi-publicly available, right? So we're going to need our policies. All of the policies are available, pre-written, ready to go. You're also going to need your objectives. Now, within the management system and within my advice is to you in the way that I do it is I set out my process for establishing my objectives. So I explain how we do that and I document that. And then I set out a table and I have a template that sets out the objectives themselves. Information security objectives, especially for a small organization, somebody starting out from scratch, are common. Right? And that's why I have been able to pre-populate that for you and give you that head start. Many people just take that and run with it, but you might want to just take that and adapt it. But those objectives exist. The objectives are, what is it that we need from the information security management system? Who's going to do it? What are they going to do? What are they going to do? When are they going to do it by? Right? Things like the milestones, all that good stuff is in there. So you're going to create that. You're going to create your management system. You're going to create your policies. You're going to set out what your objectives are. You're going to create your organizational overview. You're going to describe within documentation about who you are. You're going to describe within there your context of organization. All of the good things that we've covered in clause 4, the 4 parts of clause 4, each of the videos, you're going to have all of that documented, right? So internal and external issues, interested parties, defining your scope, all that good stuff is going to be in there. For part B, we ensure the integration of the information security management system requirements into the organizational processes. We've got to tie this in with our organizational processes, right? And again, this is part of one of the stumbling blocks, I think, for a smaller organization. Either you have processes, but they're not documented, or they are documented, but they just need a slight tweak to satisfy the requirements of information security as written out within the policies that we provided to you that meet the requirements of the standard. But you've got to make sure that you're tying that in, right? Information security management system absolutely is a management system that can kind of semi-sit independent of your organizational operations. But when it comes to the Annex A implementation, the control implementation, they're deep within your business, right? They are your business. It's how you run your business. So you're going to be going through and you're going to be making sure that that is tied in with there. The next one is ensuring the resources needed for information security management are available. Okay, small business challenge, right? You don't want to pay, you don't want to get the resources, right? There are ways around it. I go through it in the blog and I go through it within the toolkit about how you do it, but fundamentally you need to demonstrate somehow, somewhere that you have the resources available to do this thing, right? There's a couple of resources that you're going to need, right? You're going to need a management review team, an oversight body that has a structured agenda that it follows and it has some specific responsibilities associated with it. And we'll cover that in another topic, but that requires people to be part of it, right? And we do cover that and we will come to that. You're going to need to have an information security person, internal, external, contractor, consultant, part-time person, somebody internally you've sent on a course, somebody who's read a blog or watched a YouTube video, but somebody is going to have to be responsible for information security, right? And then resources within the organization to deliver it have to be made available, right? You've got to make people available within their day job to do the implementation, but then to do the ongoing running of that. There's a number of documents that we would recommend and that I provide for you that can help to demonstrate this. So there is the roles and responsibilities document that sets out all the roles and responsibilities, and it says what those responsibilities are, and you just allocate people to it. You have a roles and responsibilities document for the information security management system. You have a management review team that follows a structured agenda and has responsibilities, and you just allocate people to that. So you're demonstrating that you're making people available to it. You have an accountability matrix. Some people call it a RACI matrix. In the template, I actually give you two versions of it. I give you a full RACI, for those of you that are a little bit more mature in your processes and need that level of detail, or I give you a high level one, but the premise remains the same. We list out all of the clauses within 27001, we list out all of the controls within 27002, and we allocate somebody to be responsible for them. Whether the doing is done internally or not, whether the doing is done by somebody who isn't the person who's accountable, whether the doing is done by a third-party supplier, somebody in our organization is allocated to that clause and that control, right? The accountability stops with them. But what we're demonstrating is that people are and resources have been made available, right? So there's many different ways that you can do it. For more detail on that, please do go and have a check out the blog, but that is the high-level approach to it. The next section that from a leadership point of view is we've got to communicate the importance of an effective information security management system and of conforming to the management system requirements. Now, there's a number of different ways that we're going to demonstrate that from a leadership point of view, right? There are some standard things like having a communication plan. Again, I provide you a communication plan pre-populated with common communications that you're going to want to do. But you're going to have a communication plan, kind of communications that you do. Your management review meeting is a communication, right? You're going to be sending out communications and regular updates about where policies are, who's responsible for information security, how people raise an incident. You're going to have a training program that may be within a tool. So your communication plan may be supplemented by a training tool that has a training schedule within it. And as part of that, you're going to be doing things like annual information security training, annual data protection training, stroke GDPR training. And all of that training is going to be tracked. It's going to have a quiz at the end of it to clarify understanding. You're going to push them through that and have records of everybody having done that. There may be additional training modules that you want to do, right, based on your business. If you're fully remote, you may want to do a remote working module. If you're suffering from phishing attacks on a regular basis, you might want to roll out a phishing training tool. You might want to supplement that with phishing awareness communications. You might want to do a phishing test. So there are lots and lots of ways that we can communicate the importance and the effectiveness of information security. We can include it within our board updates, our quarterly updates, our town hall meetings, our team meetings, our company away days. There are many points that we touch with our employment base and with our supplier base where we can be communicating that. Then, of course, there are more structured approaches to communicating these things, such as contracts of employment, supplier contracts that will stipulate things within there and potentially set out the consequences of not adhering to certain things within our management system, such as disciplinary action or ending of contracts, right? So again, I give you that on the blog. Have a look at the blog and go through the detail within it, and it's all included within the templates and the toolkit. But we're communicating that importance, we're communicating that, and we're communicating what's going to happen if we don't adhere to it. So we're pushing that through. We're going to ensure that the information security management achieves its intended outcomes. To achieve its intended outcomes, we need to have some objectives, right? I mean, we need to know what those outcomes are. So again, whether you're using my template or not, you've got to list out what your objectives are. What is it that this information security management system is going to do? Common examples that I provide to you are things like implement a culture of security and awareness, right? Nice and high level, but again, I can give you the breakdown of how you would go about achieving that and measuring that within the templates and within the blog. What else is there? The management of the supply chain, right? Securing our supply chain to reduce the risk of supplier breach affecting us. to achieve ISO 27001 certification and meet our legal, regulatory and client requirements, right? So there are a number of objectives that you can implement, and ideally what you want to do is use your old methodology of SMART, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely, right? Things that are outside, that are coming in from a business perspective, but we want objectives that are realistic, right? And SMART, as discussed. So we want to have those objectives. We want to be measuring those objectives, not just annually, not just dusting them off when it comes to the external audits, but we're going to be measuring them on a regular basis. And there's different ways we can do that. We can do that through the management review team meeting. In my management review agenda, as part of my template, I always have the objectives within the management review meeting minutes so that they are reviewed at every single management review meeting. If you follow my guidance, you're having a management review meeting every month, at worst case every 3 months, so they're being regularly reviewed. I implement a process of operational security, right? So I drive operational security meetings once a week. I would include it within the minutes of that. You might want to then have an annual update where you include it in that. Many opportunities for you to review your progress against these objectives, but make sure that you've got them documented and your reviewing process against them. Directing and supporting persons to contribute to the effectiveness of the management system. Again, leadership has to be supporting these people in role. How can we do that? We can do that by having a competency matrix, right? For the people involved in the information security management system, we can run a competency matrix. A competency matrix just lays out people the kinds of skills and experiences that we might expect them to have, and then demonstrates and records that they have it. It is also useful and used for planning and to identify gaps within our knowledge and the gaps that we require within our experiences. But we can have a competency matrix. Obviously, we've got our information security awareness, we've got our information security training. You're probably going to be doing one-to-one training. You're going to be helping these people with job and role specific training and potentially encouraging them to take the security elements of that. Security, if you're in coding, security modules related to coding, security in project management, security in change management, right? So we're going to support people and provide them with resources so that they can be effective in their role. We're going to roll out policies that say what we do, and we're going to communicate those policies in a way that people understand them so that we can help them to achieve their role and help us to achieve our objectives. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to promote continual improvement. Promoting continual improvement, what do we need for that? We need a continual improvement policy. So I give you a continual improvement policy, and I give you a continual improvement process. I show you exactly how you need to do it. There is a blog on it in the website that's for free, and it's included within the templates. Continual improvement is baked into the standard, right? You know, nothing is ever perfect. And there are numerous different ways when we get to continual improvement, which is a clause later on in the series. I will talk you through the different steps that are involved in that and how we can achieve that. Supporting other relevant management roles to demonstrate their leadership as it applies to their areas of responsibility. Again, competency matrix, communication plans, management review meeting, top-down communication. All of that is baked in and built in for us to be able to achieve that outcome. So what you can see there is quite a lot really when it comes to leadership and 27001, and you would expect that. It's such a throwaway comment, right? And leadership actually is probably the hardest to engage. You know, in most organizations, they don't give a, do they? I mean, do they? Realistically, I mean, they've given it to you, right? You're doing it, and you know how much difficulty it is to get any budget or money out of them. Probably that's why you're here and doing it for free, right? But it is very, very important. And when it comes to the audit, there are a number of areas that they will check. So let's give you some value add. What are the things that an auditor is going to look for, and what is an auditor going to check? Many of them, let's do top 3, right? So the first one, an interview with senior leadership. They're going to interview these people. They're going to interview them, right? They're going to ask them. They're going to ask them about what was their involvement in the information security management system and its implementation. What was their involvement and is their involvement in an ongoing basis? They're going to ask them for things like, okay guys, where are the policies? Where are your procedures? When did you last have a management review meeting? What did you discuss? What were the topics? They're going to ask them, what's your biggest risk? What's your biggest information security risk? When was the last time you reviewed your risks? So they're going to have a conversation with senior leadership to understand their level of involvement in that. Now, whether or not it's you as somebody like me prepping them and telling them what they're going to be asked or not, or doing it the right way, let's do it the right way, and they are actively involved in it, they're going to get interviewed, right? An auditor, secondly, is going to check your documentation. They're going to make sure that all of these things that we've been just discussing about the 8 points above, communication plans, competency matrices, roles and responsibilities, documented policies that are documented, they're going to be checking that all of that is in place, right? And they're going to be looking through that and the version control and the classification and all that good housekeeping that goes with it. And they're going to be looking to make sure you've got resources. Right? And this can be a tricky one, right? I mean, if you've got a competency matrix that says nobody in your organization has knowledge, experience, training in 27001, it is usually a major non-conformity, right? I mean, how can you be running a project and running it effectively if nobody understands it or is experienced in it? So whether you're satisfying that by having a third-party supplier, either on demand or whatever, on retainer or however you're managing it, you've got to make sure that you've got the resources in place. The very, very basic resources, let alone the resources within the organization following the processes that you've now implemented. Let's have a look. This is a long one today, right? Hopefully you're still with me, but I'm hopefully adding in some value. So now we're going to look at the mistakes that people make. What are the top 3 mistakes that people make for clause 5.1? You can guess number 1, right? Number 1 is leadership are not engaged. Right? I mean, it's the number 1 mistake. Anybody that comes to me and says, can you help me with 27001? If they don't have any level of leadership buy-in, if they're like, oh, well, I don't really have any budget, oh, we just kind of need it, but we don't want to pay for it. I'm like, I can't help you, right? I can't help you. If it's somebody driving it from within information security or IT, and I say, but have you got the ear of the board or leadership? What's their appetite? Oh, no, it's an uphill battle. I'm always struggling to get resources. I can't help you, right? I can't help you. Because you're on a hiding to nothing. So the number 1 mistake that people make is leadership are not engaged. Number 2 is you cannot evidence your management reviews. Again, if you're trying to do this on the sly, people don't want to do their management reviews, they don't want to minute them, they don't want to document them. Follow my advice. Management review, structured agenda every single month, up to and including your certification and throughout year 1. Right? So many benefits which we'll cover when we get to that clause. And then number 3 is your housekeeping around your documentation, which I cover all the time and I don't need to do on here. So that was a particularly long blog today because it's such an important aspect for 27001, right? Leadership is such an important aspect for 27001. Hello, I am the ISO 27001 Ninja and this is ISO 27001 clause 5.2 policy. So we're going to do a deep dive. We're going to have a look at how you implement clause 5.2 policy. We're going to look at some of the common mistakes that people make, and we're going to look at what an auditor is going to look for. So we're going to give you all of the tools that you need for free for ISO 27001 certification. So let's jump straight in. So first of all, I'm going to start with the definition. This is the book definition direct from the standard. Remembering that ISO 27001 as a standard only has 10 pages of valuable content, and what I'm about to read to you is the maximum amount of guidance that you're going to get. But we have all the tips and tricks and we can show you what you need to do to satisfy it. Let's start with that book definition. So ISO 27001 clause 5.2 policy. Top management shall establish an information security policy that is appropriate to the purpose of the organization, includes information security objectives, or provides the framework for setting information security objectives, includes a commitment to satisfy applicable requirements related to information security, includes a commitment to continual improvement of the information security management system. The information security policy shall be available as documented information, be communicated within the organization, and be available to interested parties as appropriate. So that's the guidance that 5.2 is giving you in terms of the standard. So let's have a little bit of a think. So what are policies? Information security policy and information security policies are statements of what we do. They communicate to people, both internally and externally to the organization, what we do when it comes to information security. They are not statements of how we do it. How we do it is covered within process documents. Oftentimes when people are coming at this new or don't quite understand, they'll put a combination, right? They will put process steps within policies policy statements, within processes, and they will confuse the two. Now, that isn't to say that what they are doing is wrong, but what they are doing is going to make things incredibly difficult, right? So we have to think about the audience and the reason and the purpose for policy. And once we start to understand that this is something that could be shared with customers, with clients, this could be shared externally, is going to be published internally, then we can start to see that maybe having process steps that are in there, things that may be proprietary to how we do things, may include system names, technology names, names of individuals, staff members, then it isn't necessarily the best thing to be able to share that and to be wanting to share that externally with clients. So we don't want to muddy the waters, right? So we have an information security policy that sets out for the organization what we do, and this particular part of the standard is very explicit in what it wants us to include. When we moved to 2022 version of the standard, it actually aligned itself with how I have approached this in the past and continue to approach it. And that is by having a headline information security policy and then a series of topic specific policies. There is a feeling when you first come to this to create one large policy document. And again, that's not to say that that is wrong, but again, let's think about the purpose and how we're going to use these policies. These policies are going to be communicated to individuals. They're going to set out what we do. If we have topic specific policies, there are advantages that are put into play with that. Those advantages include we can allocate those policies to individuals, right? We can allocate those policies to the people that do the work. We can allocate those policies to the people who are accountable for that particular policy. So rather than having one individual, one document owner, one policy owner, we can now give that to the subject matter experts or the leadership of those particular departments. When it comes to the communication of the policy as well, we have many requirements that require policy statements, and some of them are quite technical. So we may have a network security policy. We may have a cryptography and encryption policy. And these technical policies are not necessarily policies that either a wider audience would understand or would appreciate having to read through, okay? So if we think about the individual that works on our reception desk, is it appropriate and are they going to benefit from reading through our detailed technical cryptography policy? And the answer to that is probably going to be no. So we're going to have a high-level information security policy, and then we're going to have topic-specific policies that sit under that. And as we go through ISO 27001, and as we go through the Annex A controls, ISO 27002, the 2022 update to ISO 27002 has now introduced the wording around topic-specific policies. It is very explicit for certain controls that there is a requirement for a topic-specific policy. So we're going to put those policies in place. When it comes to the implementation of the policies, it's not my intent to sell at you, but I have created a subset of my ISO 27001 Ultimate Toolkit, and it is a policy bundle. That policy bundle has over 25 individual topic-specific policies in it that are pre-written and ready to go. The basics, all you have to do really is just rebrand them. But it also comes with an implementation guide about how you can implement them and how you can tweak them. But for 99% of the people, they're there and they're ready to go. So I'm not going to go through writing each individual policy. Each individual policy is available on hightable.io. Each individual policy can be downloaded individually, but the benefit of downloading it in the bundle is you get everything that you need in a oneer and you save money, right? I mean, it's just an easier way of doing it. But if there's a specific policy that you think, oh, I need a software development policy, a clear desk policy, a physical security policy, head over to hightable.io and those individual policies are available for a very small amount of money. So when it comes to the policies themselves, let's go through how you can satisfy this clause, right? The standard is asking us to say, is this policy and are our policies appropriate to the purpose of the organization? Well, the way that we're going to demonstrate that is by completing clause 4, context of organization. So we've understood within our context of organization, our internal and our external issues. We've understood what our stakeholders are. So we've understood who we are as an organization with our organizational overview, and we're starting to build up that picture. So we can start to make sure that our policies are appropriate to us as an organization. There is an entire section on information security objectives, and again, yes, there are templates to download, and yes, I show you how to write it from scratch if you don't want to buy the template. But we have to create our information security objectives, and those information security objectives ideally will go in our headline information security policy. Now, the standard says it's either the objectives or the framework for setting the objectives. It is my advice to you that you include the actual objectives. The benefit of including the actual objectives is that this is a great way to communicate those. So when we're communicating our policy to staff, at the same time we are communicating our objectives, right? We don't have to do two separate communications. Plus, when these policies go externally, our external stakeholders can see straight away what the objectives are. Our headline policy is going to include a commitment to satisfy applicable requirements related to information security. And again, you're going to see in that. The way that I suggest that you do that is you make a statement and a call out to your legal contractual register. So in our legal and regulatory and contractual register, we record all of the laws, regulations, and customer requirements on us for information security. For me, if I call out to that, then it makes this document a lot more lightweight, and it's just a more efficient way of managing the system. Yes, there is a template for the legal register, and again, you can find that, but we're going to cover the requirements for legal and contractual and regulatory when we get to that section. The policy is also going to include a commitment to the continual improvement of the information security management system. Again, within my headline information security policy, I would include a statement in there that references both our continual improvement policy, a topic-specific policy, and our continual improvement process. Again, we are going to come to that. It is a clause in its own right, and we are going to cover continual improvement, but you need some kind of statement in there that shows that level of commitment. The standard wants these policies to be available as documented information. So to make these available as documented information is easy, right? You're going to make sure that these documents are on your internal document storage that is accessible by all staff. That could be Dropbox, that could be SharePoint, that could be Confluence, that could be any document management system that you are using today. Make sure the policies are on there and available. And as part of the other clauses, we've covered things like communication, about letting people know where they are, about including our policies within our onboarding process, our annual training, our annual re-acknowledgement. But the basics for this clause are make them available as documented information, i.e. stick it on your document storage. They should be communicated within the organization, reference back just to what I've said. So our communication plan is going to regularly communicate where our policies are. At least annually, we're going to communicate where the policies are and get people to acknowledge that they have read and understood and accept them. As part of our annual review, if at any point we do a mid-cycle review, right, through some change within our organization, then we're going to communicate that change, we're going to communicate that policy out to people. One of the things that I found that is another top tip is including policies within your training tool or training package. Many online training tools allow you to create your own specific modules. And many clients have had success in creating bespoke modules in the online training tools, distributing the policies to be read and understood through that tool, and then using the signature and acceptance technology that's built in to then be able to prove and record that people have read and accepted them. And the final part of this policy is that it's going to be available to interested parties as appropriate. Now, making it available to interested parties, the first part is put it on your document storage so everybody can see it, right? Communicate it, tell people about it. But there are going to be other interested parties, right? There are going to be people external to your organization that want access to this. We would say that we normally would share these documents externally under either NDA or under contract. Because we've made a conscious decision not to include process steps within our policies, we are only concentrating on what we do, not how we do it. The risk exposure that we have of sharing these externally is vastly reduced, but we would still ideally want to do that under contract or NDA. That will come down to your document classification. Again, there's a little bit of a sidebar. We cover classification in one of our other videos. But when it comes to the classification of policies, I would classify them as internal, right? So you require some level of mechanism in place before you share them. You don't just put them on your website. So that is ISO 27001 5.2 policy. What is an external auditor going to look for? So when an auditor comes to audit you, they're going to look at a number of different things. Firstly, do you have any policies, right? They're going to look, where are those policies? They're going to do a quick review of the policy and make sure the document hygiene is in place. It has a document owner, it has a document classification, it has a document version control. They're going to check that that document has been reviewed and approved within the last 12 months, that it is a live and active policy. They're going to look for evidences that you've communicated that. So maybe evidences of emails that you've sent out or other communications that you've done around that. And they're going to look for acknowledgement that people have accepted those particular policies through whatever mechanism of acceptance that you've got. The common mistakes that we see when it comes to satisfying this particular clause, and in particular policies, are number one, including process steps in policies, right? Because that confuses things. And a policy owner may be separate from a process owner. So we don't need to cover that again. But that's one of the biggest problems that we see. We see policies that are out of date, right? I mean, they're not actively being reviewed. So you can see policies with last reviewed date 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago. You know, nobody's touched it in a while. So the document hygiene is going to be absolutely, you know, one of the things that you want to look for. So I think they're probably the two biggest things when it comes to policy. Number three, it isn't a mistake to have one large policy, but it can be confusing. It can hinder you from communicating. It can hinder people from reading it. So, you know, having one large policy and not topic-specific individual policies isn't necessarily a mistake, but I'll include it in the mistake section because it just creates more problems than it does in terms of benefits. So that was a bit of a deep dive today. We've just done high level deep dive, if you can do both of those, on ISO 27001 policy. So the headlines are: have a high level information security policy, include the requirements of the standard within there, have topic specific policies that address the topic specific areas that you have implemented from Annex A in your organization. Make sure they're communicated, make sure that they're approved, make sure that they're annually reviewed. To fast track this, you know that I have the ISO 27001 policy bundle, which you can download from my website for an incredibly reasonable price. And it is going to save you, what, maybe 2-3 months worth of work, you know, to research what you need for each individual policy, then to work out the wording of it, and then to like write it and document it and blah, blah, blah. And they come with the implementation guide, right? So the very specific implementation guide about how you implement that into your organization. If you don't do that and you're going to write them yourselves, then good luck. I wish you well with that journey. And please do look on hightable.io, because a number of the policies, actually, I tell you how to write them. So the education is on there so that you can do it for free. In this video, we're going to take a super deep dive into ISO 27001 clause 5.3. Organizational roles, responsibilities and authorities. How exciting is that? Strap yourselves in. Let's go, right? So we're going to look at what it is, what you need to do about it, what an audit is going to look for, top 3 mistakes that you make, usual, and hopefully provide you some value add so that you can pass this goddamn certification for 27001, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the book definition. We always start off with the book definition, then you know what we're dealing with. I'm going to read it, so you're going to see me reading. Here's what it is. I can't remember these things. I am the 27001 ninja, but I'm not like Rain Man or something. You know, I don't have a photographic memory. So let's go. 27001 clause 5.3 definition. The standard defines clause 5.3 as top management shall ensure the responsibilities and authorities for roles relevant to information security are assigned and communicated within the organization. Top management shall assign the responsibility and authority for ensuring that the information security management system conforms to the requirements of this document and reporting on the performance of the information security management system to top management. Okay, so what is it that we're looking at here? We're looking at, basically the standard is saying, yo, top management, right? This is your responsibility for accountability, but give it to someone to do. And make sure that whoever you give it to reports back to you so you know what it is that they're doing, right? We've discussed this a number of times, right? 27,001 as a standard is only 10 pages of valuable content, and that is the maximum amount of guidance that you're going to get. Thankfully, through decades of implementation and audits, I know what it is that the auditors are going to be looking for, and actually we can expand on that a little bit further, right? So the standard wants us to assign the responsibility to somebody, put some authority behind them so that they can make sure that we're meeting the standard. What is it that I would do? Well, when it comes to the standard, the first thing I would do is I would buy the ultimate ISO 27001 toolkit that includes everything that you need, the most ruthlessly effective, the most aggressively priced, cheapest ISO 27001 toolkit on the market that includes everything that you need. But failing that, what else would I do? So I would assign, first of all, I would complete my roles and responsibilities document. Yes, there is a template for that. If I haven't got a template, what do I need, or what is included in the template? Well, what you have is you have specific roles when it comes to an information security management system. You've got the role of the CEO, the role of the senior leadership team, you've got the role of management, you've got the role of the information security manager, you're going to have the role of the business continuity manager, the third party supplier manager, etc., etc. So what you're going to do is you're going to have a document that sets out the roles that make up your information security management system and then explains what it is that that role does, right? Once you've got that, ideally you're going to download the template, but once you've got that document in place, you're then going to assign people to those roles. Now, in a small organization, it may well be the case that one individual is assigned more than one role, and that is absolutely fine. What we're looking at trying to do is maintain a level of segregation of duties, right? We're trying to remove conflict by having segregation. So if you find that that is being introduced and you are too small to have it any other way, then the way that you're going to solve that is by having a risk register item and then managing that through risk. And we'll discuss that on another topic and another blog. But you're going to have your roles and responsibilities document, and you're going to have that roles and responsibilities document populated with the people that are doing the work. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the structure of a management review team. Right, a management review team, as part of my roles and responsibilities, has certain responsibilities within the management system. One of those is about overseeing the policies, about overseeing the program, about overseeing the work, and also about reporting back to senior leadership and senior management the progress, the status, the ongoing implementation, and where we are within our 27001. So I'm going to get my management review team together. How am I going to get my management review team together? I'm going to pick at least one individual from each operational area of the business, right? At least one operational individual. The reason I'm going to do that is we need to communicate and we need to bring people on a journey with us, right? So we want everybody within our organization involved. Taking one individual from each operational area will help with that. What I'm also going to do is ask them to assign a deputy. What we want is a deputy for each of the management review team members that has the authority to sign things off on their behalf, right? One of your worst case scenarios is that you operate a management review structure that has accountability, responsibility, reporting responsibility, and then people don't turn up. Something inevitably, and it's usually the negative, right? Something inevitably goes wrong. And then they say, oh, but I wasn't there. I didn't know anything about it. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure you have a deputy so that somebody is there. So I'm going to assign my management review team, and I'm going to make sure that my management review team meets on a monthly basis, at least and up to our certification audit, and ideally continues to meet monthly for the first year of implementation. And I'm going to make sure that my management review team ongoing never meets any less frequently than every 3 months. What am I saying? It's got to meet at least every 3 months, right? So let's not be meeting once a year if possible. I'm going to implement those management reviews, right? So we're going to get that absolutely documented. For every management review, we're going to schedule those. We're going to have those in the calendar. There is a guide and a blog how to conduct a management review, as you would expect, and it comes with a video. You can watch that separately to this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that all of those meetings are minuted and I have documents of those minutes, right? I'm going to make sure that I have documents of those minutes. The next thing that I'm going to do as well is, as part of this, because it makes sense and the standard requires it, is I am going to complete a competence matrix, a ISO 27001 competency matrix for every member of the management structure, for everybody that's involved in information security management in its delivery, for everybody documented in the roles and responsibilities document, for everybody documented in the RACI matrix. I am going to make sure that I have completed a competency matrix for them. Yes, there is a template for it, and there's a video on how to create that yourself from scratch for free. But the basic concept of a competency matrix is we are demonstrating that we have the competencies to run an effective management system. We're recording the names of individuals down the side, and then we're recording the levels of experience, certifications that they have that are relevant to the management system. And we are using that competence matrix to evidence competence, but also to identify gaps and to provide us with planning where we may have those gaps in knowledge and or in training. So I'm going to make sure that I have that in place. Through a combination of those, we are in a position where we can effectively demonstrate our compliance with this particular clause, right? So what is a auditor going to look for? When an auditor comes to audit us and they're auditing us against this standard, they are going to look for those items I've just mentioned. They're going to want to see roles and responsibilities documented. They're going to want to see some kind of mechanism of a management review team that's meeting regularly, following a structured agenda, but is also reporting out. As part of our management review team, we have an operational member from every part of the organization. Plus, we have at least one member of senior leadership. Did I mention that? Maybe I didn't. You need that. You need a senior member of your leadership team, right? Because they are going to be your conduit and communication up there. And you're going to have the reports that come out of the back of that are going to be distributed. And then for everybody that we have that's allocated a role and responsibility, we're going to make sure that they exist on the competence and we know that they have the competence to do the job. My ISO 27001 Ninja top tip is deputies. Ensure that you have deputies for everybody. And if you're not following the template, you need to be recording when those people were assigned to those roles and responsibilities. So this one is quite an easy one, right? I mean, there isn't much more to go through in this one for you, other than to say, give it to somebody, right? Senior leadership, give it to somebody. Make sure that you give them the tools and resources that they need to be able to deliver to the standard. Make sure you give them everything that they need to be successful, and then get them to report to you that they're doing the right thing. I mean, that's the bare minimum you need to do, right?